Good evening and welcome to a meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is a special meeting tonight. I'd like to think that all of our meetings are special, but our normal meetings are on the first and third Tuesday of the month, and because of the holiday yesterday, it is a special meeting of the City Council on Wednesday, January 2nd. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Invite you to stand and join us in an invocation tonight led by Pastor James Sanchez, Life Church, and I will follow with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor James?
Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to be here. And if you would like to join me in prayer, I would invite you to do so. Let us pray. Jesus, we thank you for this time to come together as the leaders of our community. We ask for your supreme guidance and divine creativity as we discuss the issues of our city. We ask that you would supply us with the wisdom needed for the future as we strive to be good stewards of the city you have given to our care. We also ask that you would watch over and protect those who lead our community, both those on this council and those affiliated with this council. And bless each and every person here as the leaders commence with tonight's meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor James. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We've got a full council here tonight, and welcome to our first meeting in 2019. We have an agenda that we operate with, and I hope you all have a copy of that agenda. And if there's no move to change the agenda, we'll move forward with the agenda as prepared. We'll go with presentations. We actually have no proclamations tonight, so we'll move immediately to citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. To ensure comments are properly recorded, please state your name clearly into the microphone. Please limit comments to 3 minutes to ensure all citizens have sufficient time to speak. And I see that we've got George Stahl signed up. George, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Happy New Year. Like many of you, I think I'm getting over a cold. So those of us who shook hands, I told you I washed mine, but don't be afraid to wash yours again. I'm here to remind us, I think most of us know about this, but here to remind us about a volunteer opportunity. In fact, actually a requirement, but it's also an opportunity to volunteer later this month. It's the annual point-in-time homeless count, which is held every year across the country, this year on January 24th. And in looking around the room this evening, I noticed that I've actually volunteered in the community in Oak Harbor with most of you. Bill and I have spent too many nights volunteering as host volunteers at the Haven. The mayor and I have spent many happy evenings serving meals at the Spin Cafe. Tara, you and I have spent a couple of years together in the Point in Time survey, and the rest of us, I know we've been out there. I just can't put my finger on what it was exactly. So it's been my pleasure, and it's been the community's benefit to have you so actively involved. Volunteering in the community. So very quickly, the handout that you should have is January 24th. That's a Thursday. That's my racquetball day after Navy relief. So I'm going to give up Navy relief and racquetball. And we have 4 shifts to choose from: the 7 to 10, the 10 to 1, the 1 to 4, and the 4 to 7. So 4 3-hour shifts. We have 7 two-person, did I say man? No, good. 7 two-person teams assigned to each shift. We sign in at the Spin Cafe. You can sign up ahead of time. In fact, we'd really ask you to share this with your civic organizations, community groups. You can sign up ahead of time, please, at the Genius sign up. Sign Up Genius. And if it doesn't come right up into the Oak Harbor homeless point in time count, you can give it a hint that that's what you want to look at. And you can sign up for your shift or invite others in your network to sign up for their shift. If you haven't participated before, there is about a 30-minute training session that's held Monday the 14th, and we're doing that right over here in the library. And we're going to do it at 9 o'clock. Or if you can't come in the morning, join us in the afternoon at 5 o'clock. Any questions from anybody? Thank you in advance for your participation. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Okay, any other citizen comments? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. Item number 4, we have consent agenda items 4A through 4F. Anybody like to discuss any of those? And if, yes, Councilman Allenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to have a short discussion about the legislative priorities.
Okay.
So we'll pull that one for a moment.
4F, okay. Any others? Okay, seeing none, will items 4A through E will be approved as presented. So yes, Mr. Allenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. On the legislative priorities, one that's not on there, and quite frankly, we haven't really discussed it directly as a priority, but it's going to come up during the negotiations with the city and the Navy regarding the Navy's desire to connect to the wastewater treatment facility. And it may be necessary that we reach out to both at our state and federal level representatives, senators, to help, not only just help us, but help the Navy with funding priorities when it comes to that agenda item. And maybe we'll talk about it in more in detail. But I would make a motion that we add in the legislative priorities an item in there about legislative funding, outreach to legislators for funding possibilities for the Navy on the wastewater treatment facility.
Got a motion? Do I hear a second? Councilor Sravidius?
I'll second it to discuss it. I
Okay.
think it's worth discussing.
Okay. Motion and second to add outreach to, I don't know whether you took,
Legislative funding
okay,
possibilities for Navy for the wastewater treatment plant.
okay. Got a motion and second? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a question, I don't understand how the legislators would help the federal government, our Navy, with funding for the wastewater treatment plant.
Well, excuse me, I'll wait till it's my turn.
Okay. It's your turn now.
You may be aware, may not be aware, that as we approach the Navy in serious discussions about joining us in this, the Navy at the local level is not going to have a lot to say about where the money comes from. And with what is happening in the Navy and some of their FY funding for this, we could find ourselves doing a lot of negotiation, putting a lot of time into this, a lot of effort with the Navy, and then we end up with the Navy unable to really go forward with capital facilities funding for this. They're probably going to want to look to us for funding through our rates and maybe even out of our own pocket. But I'm bringing this as a priority item that we need to be looking down the road, that this is going to probably be a higher priority than these other items on this. And we just don't need to, we don't have all the details about it right now. But it will be something that will come out to introduce itself to us before too long. So if we get it if we get it as a priority, we at least have a discussion point to follow up on.
Councilor
It will
Heisen.
come up.
Councilor Heisen.
I think it goes without saying that this is a priority. It has been. We overbuilt the plant because we knew the Navy would come to us at some point, so this isn't new. But I agree with Councilmember Munn's putting this on the list of legislative priorities that goes to our representatives in Olympia doesn't, it's just not it's not the right venue, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. I mean, we can obviously meet with our representatives at a federal level and let them know that this is on our mind and it's a priority, and if they could keep that in mind during their budget negotiations, I think that's a great idea. But adding it to the legislative priorities that we send to Olympia, I don't see the benefit in doing that. I think it would just be confusing, because again, they would have no influence.
Mr. Olborn?
Yeah, I know we discussed that issue at the staff level. There needs to be some discussion on that and working with legislators. It didn't make the list, but it's certainly on our goal here. On staff, I can tell you that we're committed to working with the mayor. We're committed to the trip that you make to Washington every year, to have that as one of the issues to bring up on the federal level. So this isn't intended to be all-inclusive. These were just kind of the top 6 that we picked out that were kind of fit into goals for the state legislature, but certainly there's other goals out there. Whether you want to add it or not is certainly your call, but it's kind of wanted to give you a little feedback and just make sure that this is not all-inclusive and never was intended to be. I don't think we can get everything in there, so things come and go, priorities change and such. So.
Councilor Servetus?
Thank you. I was trying to reflect back if this has only been Olympia specific, or if we have included any bigger goals, and or if we take some of these same priorities. It's been a while. It's been 3 or 4 years now since I've been back east. But it seems like we take the same priorities. Basically, we might change the discussion somewhat when we go back east. But I don't think this has to be just inclusive to just the state legislators, unless we're trying to get ready for the upcoming meeting. So I guess I can see it going either way, where we would include it or have it as a talking point. I do appreciate that it's condensed to 1 page. I know before we had the 1-page priority with some talking points in the back. I like just 1 page. I do think it should be a priority, though, that we know that, or that our legislators know, whether state or federal, that we support the Navy and support this whole process. How we include that, I'm not sure.
Councilor Wassinger?
I would agree that it's certainly important and should be a priority that our state legislators and our federal legislators understand that this is all a priority for us. Obviously, I support that. Now, whether it land on this page, I think that this page, and I agree that it's nice condensed in 1 page. The point being for our state legislators to know, like right in their face, right very clearly what. And I think that those things should be items that they directly have a lot of control over at the state level, and things that they really can make a difference in, in their jobs as state legislators when they're taking votes and pushing bills through and writing bills. And so for me, I'm okay with not having it on our top sheet, bullet pointed. Although I do think, and I appreciate that you guys are communicating with them, state and federal. I think it could be a bullet point when you guys go back east. I think that for me that may be a more appropriate big highlighted area to take. I don't remember too. It's been a few years since I went. If we take handouts, I think we do, to give to our federal legislators with the same type of sheet. So I think that might be the place to put it. That's my thought on it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
When we had help from our legislators for funding the SRF loans, I know that Barb Bailey made sure, Senator Bailey, that it was on the capital list that the governor signed. But I don't believe it was on our priorities that goes to AWC and our legislators, but it also gets expanded through all the legislation throughout the state in Olympia. I just feel like a one-on-one with them, getting them to back us if we need this. But I guess the predicament that I believe the Navy is in, they're not going to be able to use that lagoon much more, and they've got to do something quick, and they don't have time to build a whole new plant. So I think the funding will be there for them. I haven't seen any indication yet that it's not, but it would be definitely something just like we hand-delivered before, but somehow the Pentagon and the region didn't communicate very well last time. But hopefully we can get the message through this time. But it's a priority and we need to put it out front, but I don't think it really belongs on this unless staff thinks this should be on our legislative priorities.
I'll answer for, at least for, and we vetted it, and we know that issue on there, and certainly when we do the letter for the congressman about what issues we want you to talk about with the Navy personnel, that's going to be on that list. But I kind of, certainly it's your call, it's a policy issue, but just because it's not on there doesn't mean it's going to be not going to be a priority for us to address that issue, because there is some legislative help on the federal level that can make this be a smoother process, and certainly we have experienced department heads that kind of been through this and already have brought that up and have educated me as a new person to the city on what we need to do, and we'll proceed accordingly.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Umber.
We're talking about adding ink to a piece of paper, and this is also a reminder for us to stay focused. This is not just a message that we sent out in color print to our legislators, both at the state level and at the federal level. This is a item that we will address this. This will come back to us, and we just can't speculate that the Navy will just come up with the money without our help. So, you know, I'm a firm believer to be proactive. You put it down so that it's a statement that's made to the public and to our representatives, to the Navy. We're out to help the Navy, but we're also trying to help ourselves too. So putting additional ink on a piece of paper doesn't seem like it's that inconvenient. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it, but it still keeps the ball right in front of us all the time. So that's why I brought it up.
Councilor Wiesner.
I guess the one concern I would have, Councilor Omberg, you kind of mentioned that we don't know a lot about where we're heading or what's going on with the Navy right now. And looking over the existing legislative priorities, they're very clear, distinct to a point, and even in some cases include possibly where funding may come from. You know, I think it's something really graspable. I guess my question would be, what exactly would we be asking for? Isn't it a little early? Would we have enough information that if a legislator did pick that as a priority and asked to move forward with it, would we have enough information to actually make that request and sell that idea?
Are you asking me a question, and then may I respond?
You can respond. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have a ways to go on this discussion, which is on our agenda. You know, we're getting a little bit ahead on the agenda items right now. There's enough information that I think that the staff has, and conversations that I've had with other people connected with functions in the Navy, that funding for these projects are not just going to happen because we ask for it. And this process is going to take us a while. We probably won't, even on the agenda items, we're probably looking 6 to 12, maybe 6 months down the road before we have the numbers to be talking about the need for money. But the problem is, when we're doing our rate study, and I hate to even step this far forward in it, is that will we have the money without bonding or coming out of magic bank account to do the transport line for the Navy? Where are they going to come up with the money? And there seems to be some question about them being able to come up with the money in a timely manner. And I think I would rather talk more about that when we get to that agenda item. But I still think that it's going to be a lot higher priority and things that we're going to need than some of the things that we have on our list right now. Even though those items on our priority list are important, I don't want to lose this window of opportunity with the Navy joining the wastewater treatment plant. That's a priority to me.
Okay, so we have a motion. Help me again, Carla.
Councilmember Alberg moved to add an item to the legislative priorities regarding outreach for legislative funding possibilities for the Navy in connection with the wastewater treatment plant. Second by Councilor Sweet.
Okay. Any other questions or input? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Okay. Okay, so that means that consent agenda item
Really short-sighted.
4F will remain, and we will move on to, yes, I'm sorry?
Could we get a motion to approve that consent agenda item? Because
Okay.
what we voted on was just the amendment.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we include a consent item 4F to be included. That's resolution, right, of priorities? Be approved?
Approved.
Approved?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is actually to approve Resolution 1901, 2019 legislative priorities. Motion and second, okay. Any question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Mayor's comments, actually, other than to welcome the council and those watching us tonight to 2019. I have no comments beyond that. So, council members. Yes, Councilor Servadius.
I'd just like to say Happy New Year to everyone and also comment on the fireworks. I had someone reach out to me and they kind of bemoaned the fact that the city didn't put on a longer show for the fireworks. I just want to extend my gratitude to the Chamber of Commerce. All of that is through private fundraising. It was $12,000 that goes up that quickly. So I know people keep looking at the city and I wish we had the funding to do it, but I'm grateful that Christine Cribb and her staff and all of the private donors out there make that happen, not only at New Year's Eve, but also on the 4th of July. It's not the city's deal.
Well said, well said. Councilor Heisen.
I'm sure that everyone who would like more fireworks is more than welcome to donate so that the show can be longer next year. I want to thank George Saul for coming and bringing the point in time count to our attention. The 24th, it's same day every year, and it's a really important day. It's a very interesting and eye-opening day. And anyone who has even a couple hours to spare, I would really, really encourage you to come down. Sometimes we send people out and about to wander around. Sometimes I know that I usually just hang out at the Spin Cafe and talk to people that come in. It's just a really worthwhile use of time. So thank you for volunteering every year, all day. Appreciate the work that you do in our community, and please pass that along to the other volunteers as well. And I want to know, maybe this is a question for Blaine, the National League of Cities Conference is coming up in March as what?
National.
Yeah, National League of Cities in DC, which was referenced a couple times in the previous conversation. When are we going to have a discussion about that and who's going to go? And we kind of missed the ball on that last year, so I want to talk about it.
Yeah, we've actually had a discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was decided that the 2 new council members would go.
Okay.
Beth and I actually will not go to the National League of Cities, but we are going to the Pentagon.
Okay.
And the 2 new council members will be invited to the Pentagon
Attend the conference?
and visit the Pentagon.
Okay. Perfect.
That was discussed as a council item, wasn't it, under your report
I think
a
so,
couple
yes.
meetings ago?
Yeah. And, we're within our budget to do that. And that seems to be the way without raising the budget to include a third attendee. So,
I missed that conversation, so I watched the meetings that I missed while I'm at work. So my attention must have been diverted from that part because I've been kind of waiting to hear about it. I think it's a really good idea for the newer council members to attend the conference. I think that that's a worthwhile expenditure. Once you've been once or twice, you kind of get the gist, but I'm glad that you guys are going. That's
Yeah,
good.
they both were willing to go and I think excited to attend.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Yes, Councilor Wassinger.
Happy New Year to everyone, and I just wanted to add, this is just a quality of life announcement for anybody that's watching, that youth sports, our sign-ups are still going on. I know as a family with young kids that it's important for everybody's living on the island and family, so there's rec basketball you can still sign up for at whidbeyhoops.com. And then Little League, my favorite, is also opened up for registration. There's forms at Big Five and McDonald's, and they're going to have every Saturday this month, I think it's from 10 to 1, about at the Chamber, in-person signups. So basketball and baseball and softball are available and out there for all the little kids. I think both are like ages 4 or 5 through 14 about. So wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Whidbey Hoops.
whidbeyhoops.com.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
They've been taking reservations already for the Whidbey Island Marathon. And the earlier you register, the cheaper your registration fee before it goes up.
True.
So get out those shoes and rain gear and start practicing.
Okay. Any other council comments? Okay, we'll move to City Administrator.
All right, new year, new goals. We're talking about our goals with legislative priorities. I provided you a copy of the 2019 Leadership and Management Challenge that I provided to the department heads this morning. I think read a nice article about Imagine, and I gave you the source there of the first thing. So 2019 is the year to imagine. I challenge staff to do that. Other things, I like the power of 3, so I selected 3 areas to work on. Leadership equals integrity and collaboration, and those are characteristics and goals that are focused on in my professional association, the International City County Management Association. And lastly, from my last conference, I really liked a course I took on team performance equals high skill and high will. So we'll press ahead and drive these values and these goals within our organization, and it's all about trying to improve ourselves and improve the organization and raise everybody up. And certainly if we do good as a city, we want to improve and follow our mission statement here in providing services to our citizens. So that's my first area. Second area, I want to, can't wait to announce the new year has passed, and one of the things we did was we transferred officially the seaplane base Lagoon now is in the hands of the Navy, and so they can have it. And so we have our plant running, and I congratulate all the staff for working on that long process. I'm coming here at the tail end, but it's been a 10-year process of doing an alternative to that lagoon, and so certainly commend that. We do have recognize that there's 2 issues remaining that we have to follow up, and I think we've talked about those issues in the capital projects that remain, but the stewardship now is in their hands to do it, and so hopefully they'll do the right thing in the later item we have and come on board and join us and abandon it altogether. So, and then just a reminder, lastly, that the Clean Water Facility monthly report is only monthly now, so it'll be at the next council meeting for that monthly report.
Okay, thank you. And we will then move on to public hearings and meetings. We've got a resolution, ordinance, and a couple of contracts to discuss. And to speak during a scheduled public hearing or meeting, please sign in on the sheet. And if you don't sign in, you'll still get a chance to speak. To ensure comments are recorded properly, please state your name clearly into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes to ensure all citizens have sufficient time to speak. So we will go to Resolution 1903, surplus utility property, and we have Kathy Rosen, Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. A public hearing is required when we wish to surplus any items that were purchased with utility funds, and we have two of those items before you tonight. The first is our yard waste truck number 63, which is a 2006 Peterbilt. And you approved purchase of a new yard waste truck at your meeting in December. So we need to surplus our existing one so that when the new one is ready for us, we can trade this 2006 Peterbilt in. And there's a trade-in value of I believe, $9,000 that's shown in the agenda packet. And the other item is a generator that was part of the purchase of the Whidbey Island Bank building. Since that building has been demolished, we no longer have a need for that generator, so we need to surplus it and get that out probably in the next 2 months, and it will be auctioned off. So at this point, we're recommending that the council hold a public hearing on disposal of these two items and then consider approving Resolution 1903.
Okay, before we discuss that up here at council, I'll ask if the public has any questions or input. Okay, seeing none. Kathy, you can come back. And council, any questions? Or Councilor Wassinger.
There's no other comments. I will move to approve Resolution 1903, surplus utility property.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the resolution number 1903 as presented. A motion by Councilor Wassinger, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no further questions or input, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So we will next go to item number 7A, which is ordinance number 1863 regarding the rezone parcel S8180-00-00019-0 from R4 to RO. And we have our planner, Ray.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you reading all those numbers off for me so I don't have to. Thank you, members of the City Council. I'm just going to do a quick kind of review of the process by which we came here today. What we have is a rezoning request for a property, and it's the clinic building that's right up here on the corner of Ireland and 8th. And the request was to go from R4 to RO. And the reason behind that is because the property, now it's not going to work for me. Nope, not working. Oh. Good grief. There we go. Okay, gotta be smarter than the machine. Okay, so the building was constructed in 1963 as a medical clinic, and it was in use for a number of decades as a medical clinic until 2014 when it was vacated. And what happened is over the intervening years is it lost its non-conforming status, essentially. It can be non-conforming in that zone district unless it's no longer in use for at least a year, and that's what's happened here. And so we had an applicant come in who wanted to remodel that building and continue to use it as a medical office, but we told them at the time that they can't because the non-conforming status has expired. So the process by which they can do that is to get the property rezoned to an appropriate zone district, which would be RO. Fortunately, we've streamlined the process by which we can rezone properties, so they're in the same land use category, so that removed the requirement to do a comprehensive plan amendment, which makes things a lot quicker. And then the second thing that changed recently was to allow the hearing examiner to have the actual public meeting, take testimony, and then provide a recommendation to you. And his recommendation after our public hearing on December 18th was to approve that zone change. And so here we are. I'm going to keep it very brief, and that's pretty much the gist of it.
Okay, is there anybody here in the audience that who'd like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring Ray back. City Council? Councilor Heisen?
This seems like pretty straightforward, common sense stuff. So I know a lot of these issues can be pretty complicated, but this doesn't appear to be one of them. I'll go ahead and move to adopt ordinance number 1863 as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1863 as presented. Motion by Councilor Heisen, second by Councilor Larson. I think I got that right, didn't I? Okay. Seeing no further questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Nice job. We will move on to section 8, and we have two agreements and contracts to discuss. Item number 8A is U.S. Navy contract. I'm not going to read that long number, but it's wastewater treatment plant connect and treatment rate analysis. And we have our Public Works Director again, Kathy Rosen.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. In August, council authorized staff to submit a rate analysis proposal to the Navy for a connection fee and treatment and operation, connection fee, and then treatment and operation and maintenance rates. Our proposal was for a not-to-exceed amount of $139,275.40, and that included the services of HDR, who will utilize Carollo Engineers as a subconsultant. Also included the services of PFM for analysis of the funding options, and then a 10% city administration fee. On October 24th, city staff met with representatives of the Navy to discuss our proposal, and it was agreed at that meeting that the city would modify our proposal in a couple different ways. Number one, the Navy requested that we modify the kickoff meeting from an 4-hour in-person meeting to a 2-hour conference call, so that reduced some of the costs of HDR and Carollo. And that the Navy, in their original request for quotations, did not include a public presentation. However, we believe that before we submit anything to the Navy, it requires council approval. So task number 9 for HDR and their proposal will be treated as a city expense, and we will bill the Navy for it in that way. But they couldn't include it as a specific task because they didn't ask for that. The third thing was we removed the services of PFM from our proposal because HDR can perform those services at this stage of the game. It's really if we are successful and reach agreement with the Navy for them to connect and we have to bond for anything, that's where we would really need PFM. So it's premature to have them involved anyway. So we took them out of the proposal. And then we changed the proposal from a time and materials not to exceed basis to a fixed fee basis at the request of the Navy. With these changes, the total cost of the city's proposal was reduced to $127,065. It was submitted to the Navy on November 16th, 2018, and then on December 10th, 2018, the Navy notified us that they have accepted the revised proposal. So at this point, we are needing council approval for the mayor to actually sign this order for supplies or services that's in your packet, and then we can get started. That formalizes that arrangement with the Navy. They will pay us for the services of HDR, and then the next item is the actual contract with HDR. Available for any questions.
Anybody here in the audience got questions or, okay? Seeing none, council? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. When I look at the milestones, duration, and government review thing, so basically, once we sign this, within 10 days or 7 days, the Navy's going to get this bill, or you have that conference call meeting?
Yes, we will. We are hoping to have that conference call next week.
Okay.
The initial kickoff.
Okay. And then from that, will you be doing, I mean, I think we have HDR, I mean, they're primed to have the rate stuff to give to them, so it shouldn't take too long to get this moving. Will we be able to say, okay, Navy, we'd like this back by a certain time?
Well,
ask.
we can try.
Okay, we can try.
We can always try.
I know.
But HDR and Carollo are aware of the schedule that the Navy put out, so we will meet the submittal deadlines for getting the information to the Navy. How long it takes the Navy to respond back to us, that's completely out of our hands, and we will be submitting a list of data and information that we need from the Navy for HDR to prepare the analysis. So as soon as all of that information is received, then Sean and crew can begin their work.
Yes.
A
Go ahead.
side question, I see the list of the region people, but do we also send all these copies over to Captain Arnie so that he's aware of what's going on? Because sometimes it's nice to have someone with a stick that says, hey, this is my base and my people and they need to flush toilets, so let's get on the stick. Is there a way to be able to make sure, I mean, sometimes you depend on a group to be sure to dissipate the information, and sometimes it doesn't get done. So is that allowed? I mean, it seems like we should
I'm
be
not
able to-
sure about that protocol. Our agreement would be pretty specific as who we have to submit to. That might be something that the mayor could speak with the CO and make arrangements for that. I do know that staff from NAVFAC regional office is also involved in this, so it's not just local staff.
I know, I guess I'm recalling some other meetings where the region and NAVFAC weren't kind of all on the same page, and I know that with Captain Ortier at the time, it would have helped if he was getting it, or at least CC, they could see he's getting a copy of it at the same time, or whoever is the base CO, so that you've got us, them, and they're here, and it's like, okay, let's get this together, and what problems are we seeing? Is there problems with getting funding or not? But I just think it moves faster if we can assimilate the factual information to everybody at the same time, and it can't hurt. If that's, I'd like to put that request in, Mayor.
Okay. I'd be happy to do my best to communicate that with Captain Arnie immediately after we approve it tonight. Councilor Heisen?
Thank you. I want to echo Councilmember Munn's request. I mean, I know as a council person, my favorite thing is to read in the newspaper what we're about to do and find that out for the first time. So just as a professional courtesy, I think we should let Captain Arnie know what's happening so he doesn't get a call 3 months from now and not have any idea what they're talking about. Because that's just not how things should be done. So, and it's a public process anyway, so whether it's part of the official, streamline, there's nothing saying that as a professional courtesy that you can't be in touch with them and just let them know what's going on. I know that I would prefer that that's how we do business.
I meet with the commanding officer once a month, and sometimes we're together more often than that. I can tell you that the last 2 meetings I've had with him, for the very first time since I've been mayor, he had the admiral at both of those meetings, who is fairly new to the region. But in both of the meetings, this topic was discussed, and it's a high priority for them too, so you bet.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a question on operation. I know we have the capacity to add them now without having all the extras added that we will need at some point. So can we hook them up and then finish doing all the other stuff that we need to do, or it has to all be fresh lines?
Well, there is no real way to get
Okay.
their flow to our treatment plants
Okay,
now. So the conveyance system would have to be constructed. And that is one of the items that they are asking us to look at funding, and then they would pay us back over time through rates. So there may be other ways to do that that may impact our bonding capacity. That's everything that Sean has to look at. There may also need to be additional MBR cartridges added to the plant to address that additional flow. So there may be some additional capital costs associated with treating that extra wastewater at the plant right now.
but
So.
they haven't really told us what option they want, whether they're going to build it and we supervise that, no, it's got to be this way, or if they prefer that we build it and they watch. I mean, so that really hasn't been,
So
Decide yet.
so the analysis that HDR will be doing will look at 4 different alternatives, and it includes that.
okay,
And then they have to go back and compare those costs with other alternatives to treat their wastewater that they're considering, including building their own treatment plant. So it's a process. This is just the first step.
okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Larson.
Well, we've decided as a council before to move forward with this, so at this point, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the Navy order for supplies or services in the amount of $127,000, $127,065 as presented.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to, the motion is to approve the recommended action. Motion by Councillor Larson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Any other questions or input at this time? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. So we will move on to item number 8B, which is Professional Services Agreement, HDR Inc., for the Navy Utility Rate Study.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As we just talked about, the Navy had requested a proposal from the city to explore connecting the Navy facilities to the city's transmission conveyance system, as well as to the treatment plants. That requires both capital and operational cost structure for reimbursement of those expenses. The Navy, the proposal to the Navy included consulting assistance from HDR. They're providing our rate analysis for all of the city's utilities, and they're very familiar with the cost of the sewer treatment plant and our sewer rate structure. This proposal to the Navy is a logical extension to the existing rate analysis contracts, and with their detailed knowledge of the sewage system, Carollo Engineers would be that subconsultant to HDR to talk about what improvements, if any, need to be made to the plant to treat the Navy's wastewater flow, in addition to the conveyance system. The professional service agreement that's before you tonight was included in our response to the Navy's request that we submitted in November. It includes analyzing the 4 alternatives requested by the Navy and developing the alternate sewer connection charges and developing sewer rates that reflect the various alternatives. It also includes meeting with the Navy and the City Council at various intervals. The total cost of HDR's contract is $116,324, and it will be reimbursed by the Navy's contract with the city. The expected time frame for our part of the study is 8 to 12 weeks. Then you've got Navy review time in there. So we've got specific deadlines and milestones that we have to meet in our agreement with the Navy. Then when we get their response back, then we have additional milestones that we have to meet, and our milestones total to 8 to 12 weeks. At this point, we are recommending that council authorize the mayor to sign the professional services agreement with HDR Inc. for preparing a rate analysis for Navy connection to the Oak Harbor sewer system in the amount of $116,324.
Thank you, Kathy. Before we take that here to the council, make sure there's nobody from the public here to speak. Okay. Back to City Council. Any questions or input about this? Yes, Councilor Ollenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Rosen, I've gone through these agreements both with the Navy and with HDR, and it certainly appears to me that the deliverables are parallel to each of the contracts. They're basically overlapping. Let me simplify that. We expect HDR to provide exactly what the Navy has asked for. The one thing that does bother me is the Navy has a lump sum, a fixed price. You can't change it without the signature of the contracting officer. And at the same time, HDR is a T&M not to exceed, but I think we still have the stopgaps in there that says they can't go beyond the deliverables. I typically don't like contracts that one is T&M and the other one is fixed, but I think there's enough protection in this one. But what I'd like to hear from you is that there aren't any gaps in these agreements between the deliverables.
No, there are no gaps between the deliverables and the agreements. We have worked very closely with HDR and Carollo on their proposal and the scope of work that's in HDR's contract with the city to make sure that everything is covered under the Navy's proposal.
And therefore, if the Navy asks for something in addition to what's in that agreement, and we ask HDR, it's going to run parallel with the dollars also, correct? And vice
yes.
versa, HDR and Carollo will not come back to us and ask for something for additional payment for deliverables, additional work, excuse me. And we won't ask for additional work without having the Navy backing us up on that.
Yes, if the Navy asks for something outside of the current scope, we responded to their specific scope and their request for proposal. If they ask for something different, then we will probably have to modify our agreement with the Navy as well as modify our agreement with HDR to cover that.
Okay, thank you. As we've worked together on this for probably 3 years in different stages. And I have a handout that I passed out to each of the council members and to our clerk. And if somebody doesn't think that I'm serious about it now, this process is a very high priority to me. This is the only opportunity we're going to have to get some substantial break in the sewer rates with our public. We're representing the public first. And the Navy second. And I'm going to read into the record, this is a document that I've handed out to everybody to put into the record, thoughts on a unified strategy with the Navy, and it's based on our agenda, January the 2nd, for items 8A and 8B. Paragraph A reads, the Navy needs the city of Oak Harbor clean water facility more than the Navy needs
In the city.
The Navy needs the city. I'll start this one over. The Navy needs the city more than we need the Navy on this clean water facility. We've taken the risk. We're there. And the Navy had an opportunity to join us, which they declined to do. However, I'm looking forward to a positive and beneficial negotiations with the Navy for the benefit of the city ratepayers. The city ratepayers' priority are first for me, then before the Navy. However, the city ratepayers should not subsidize the Navy in any form. And I'm really, personally, I'm really adamant about that. Any funding by the city for the Navy hookup should not reduce our bonding capacity or our bond rating. We're not in the finance business. At a minimum, HDR and Carollo rate studies should recognize equitable compensation for the following, and these not limited to these either. And we have talked about these in more detail in some of our meetings. The existing very long term fixed interest rates, that's a real value to us. There's benefit to us. The Navy had an opportunity to join us and they chose not to. Reduce construction risk for a completed project. We've already completed this project. We assumed the risk. We made it through that, and then that's worth money also. Reduced treatment capacity for the city's future growth. When we add the Navy to it, no matter how they come in, they're accelerating the treatment capacity of this facility, which is also going to reduce our capacity for long-term growth. And this is a major item for me. The next one is to include a cash buyout. There's got to be some kind of an equitable cash out or a buyout if the Navy departs or reduces their volume capacity for the treatment prior to the expiration of the city's debt obligations. As long as I will be on this council, my heels will always be dug in on that item. We're not in the finance business for the Navy or anybody else. And there have to be some kind of a buyout term in this thing. And the Navy should be bound by all the terms of the city permit and with all regulatory agencies having jurisdiction over the use of the city Oakwater Clean Water Facility. In other words, our obligations, the things required by us have to run overlapping parallel onto the Navy also. And then finally, we may want to move the negotiations along post haste, as most windows of opportunity have a shelf life. Often, with a change in Congress or administration, priorities within the military also change. In addition, there will also be a shelf life to HDR's rate. We can't just say we're going to have a rate today, we give it to the Navy, so we have it this year. The rates are going to change, and conditions, political conditions can change. We also have to have escape clauses in that, or at least an equitable clause that benefit us. And I gave every one of the council members a copy of this, and I appreciate entering this into the record. Thank you.
Anyone else? How's the council like to? Yes, Councilor Wassinger.
I move to approve, let me pull up the number, sorry, I got off. Professional Service Agreement HDR Inc. for Navy Utility Rate Study as presented.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Motion by Councilor Wassinger, second by Mayor Pro Tem Munns, to approve the recommended action as presented. Any other questions or input? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, okay. Mayor
I
Pro
want to
Tem.
thank Councilman Omberg for his thoughts. I mean, we've talked about these for a long time, when the Navy passed up, and we don't want to put any more burden on it. So I appreciate his effort, and I'm glad it's in the record. So thank you.
I second.
That's not a motion, but it's
No,
a
I
second.
know.
Okay, that's all right. Anyone else?
Sorry, Carl.
Well, I'll close off by saying it's been a long time in coming. I was on the council when that decision was made for the Navy not to join us in this very room. It was an uncomfortable meeting, and my hat is off to the staff and the councils thereafter for your following through and getting a wonderful treatment plant constructed. It's been quite a process, and now we have something that they want to join in. So it's a high priority, believe me, on my desk, and I know it's a high priority for them, but it's got to be done right. And as Councilor Omberg said well, it needs to be done for the benefit of our citizens, and I will do my best to see that we move forward, and as you wish to make that happen. So, anyone else? I think that's the last item on our agenda, and it's 6:59 and just short of 7 o'clock. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. Motion by Servadius, second by Heisman. Let's adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?